of disruption. So really, I think I've just spoke through this slide. This is about the machines, the equipment, the tools. On the Edison side, what we're talking to universities and different areas about is, what will you make with these? We have a worldwide commitment to get many thousands of these into universities and colleges and tech areas. And like I said, with USAID, we've talked about how many will come into Jordan, how many will come into neighbouring countries, and how we can really make that go deep here, because I think there's an opportunity in our host country here and some of the others. And I've seen young kids take these and make robotics out of it. We've had robotics contests, we've had machine contests, and these are really pretty young students in some cases. We just awarded a small Intel capital funding actually to a 13-year-old child from India who's working on a braille printer for blind people. Kind of that sort of level of thinking and innovation that venture capital can actually help him do this. Now maybe that's a good company, maybe it doesn't make it, but the idea is fantastic, and we invested some money in it from our venture arm, our kind of bank of Intel. So that's the kind of area. This will be in many countries by the end of the year, 65 countries, so we're frantically working to get these out and meet that commitment. And it's not a big CPU on it, it's a tiny little CPU there. It's called a Quark, which means it's low cost, low power. That's what you care about. And you're programming in machine language, so we're not programming in PC language here, it's this embedded machine language. So that's an area there. So next one. Lots of work around here about making things smart. And this is an area that inside our company, we've put a lot more effort in this. Maybe in this area, poster child might be Dubai. If I went to Brazil, remember they had the World Cup there this last summer, they're going to have the Olympics there 2 summers from now. And so in that, Rio de Janeiro would be considered a smart city where they've got lots of management, lots of control in there. And we tend to think about this. We did some work in London about 6 or 7 years ago, before this smart even came in there. And what we did was we did a lot of work on Wi-Fi cameras for security, because the pubs were going to be open all night long in Westminster. There was a concern. And what they realised in the process is, but the very data we get in here is perfect for managing the traffic flow and the buses and the transportation and all of that. And suddenly realised, oh, we'll do it for this reason, but because we're getting so much data, we can use it for many, many different areas. And the integration of that was really critical. So what we started with and what we ended up with are very, very different. And so we're doing smart cities in many different places. I'll show you one example, but this is an area that you'll see this, the smart homes, the smart buildings, the smart cities, doing things remotely with your cell phones, managing the security, turning the lights on, making sure the children are safe in the home. Exactly the same in the buildings, the lights, the management, the power, and then converting to the cities, the traffic control, the data. So all of that is opportunities for developers to get ahead and start working with. So if you look at this IoT, it doesn't come real until I show you a few numbers in here. So here's one of them. Inside Intel, we have very automated factories for assembly. This is the assembly side of this, not making the wafers, but making the assembly and test. And so what they've done is they've gone in on some of the machines and put in some analytics and sensors around productivity. And what we tell ourselves is, look, if we believe it's good for the industry and developers, why don't we use it ourselves and get going and understand it? So in 2 assembly plants, that's actually saving us just using this kind of sensing and analytics and managing the data, about $9 million a year already. So we've been doing it long enough. It's a savings in an assembly area. And you could apply this to any manufacturer. You could apply it to the oil industry, the chemical industry, the farming areas, anything that moves goods and products around is applicable there. It's an area I don't know quite as well, but in an automotive area, we've looked at this and said, how can we work across fleets of delivery vehicles and other areas? And you'll see areas in there where they've saved, and I can get you the write-ups on each of these, about $15 million a year over some decent-sized fleets. And that translates into energy efficiency, which translates into savings of pollution in the planet. So that one's very keen, and that's a UN Sustainable Development Goal, the cleanliness. And the last one, this is actually driven by Cisco. So Cisco's a driver here because it's all different people who do this work. They're talking about smart buildings, energy management. So this is the air conditioning, the lights, the elevators, all sorts of areas like that. And there's lots of write-ups there where one building a year you can save $1 million on a decent-sized building just in the energy management, and the people won't see it any differently. And so those are the kind of areas. Now some of this is big data, some of it is working with very tiny things around robotics and small machines and sensors on air conditioners, etc. for the maintenance. But I want to show you 3 examples, and if anyone says I would like to know much more about those, I'll get you a write-up for it offline that will tell you some more. So here's the last one I want to look at. Now, excuse me for putting a name on this, but I could have put a Cisco name on this. I could have put several other names on it, and it wouldn't look much different. It would be similar because a lot of people are doing this. So I'll represent the industry here. But what I want you to think about is, look at the middle line. You've got things. These are devices. But then you need gateways, and you need networks, and you need clouds. So there's opportunities in all of that. The most natural thing in a university is let's look at the things and devices and work those, but there's a whole piece of that. It runs across many, many different platforms in those different areas. But it runs not just from things, from gateways, from data, from cloud. And then you have to look at how do I manage that? I want to do analytics. I've got to be able to intelligently manage lots of data. When a plane flies transcontinental, the engine, it's an unbelievable amount of data that has to be analyzed. So in that, you need the various tools. I just put some that Intel has, Wind River. We have a security, obviously McAfee in there, Masharipona, all sorts of data handling capabilities, each of which have developers kits and tools and other areas for people to work in. Some of these need big resources, some of them are small, but in this, don't just think, oh, I'm doing a device and a little bit of data comes out and I forget about it. The payback is in managing the data and handling the data and the software and the solutions and the security that runs around those. And it does need security because if you're working with signage and machines, you don't want them disruptive, you don't want them to give you the wrong signs. You need that kind of safe, it's doing exactly what I intended it to do, I have the ability to update it and manage it, and all of the stuff a big enterprise would need. So I think there's opportunities from the things, through to the cloud, through to all the layers in between. And so as we look at this, think about that piece of it as well. And again, any other big company I think would show a similar opportunity slide because lots of them have these kind of tools and capabilities. I think that does it. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you all for being here. You can hear me? And I want to ask you, when you guys flew in the airport, did you guys see that did they take the photos of your eyes in those cameras? Did you know that that is a Jordanian company that does this, called Iris Guard? And they are implementing it in security. They're implementing it in banks. So you could walk up to an ATM, just put your eyes, and you get the cash without an ID or an ATM card. So the story goes about 4 years ago. His Majesty King Abdullah calls in the founder of Iris Guard. His name is Imad Malhaz. And he tells him, so Imad gives His Majesty a demo on this thing. And His Majesty was very impressed. And he goes, so where do you do this stuff? You're a Jordanian company. He goes, well, the design is done in England, and the manufacturing is done, depends where, sometimes in the States, sometimes in China. He goes, why can't you design this here? And Imad goes, well, CD, it is difficult. There's a lot of parts to this. There's a lot of elements. There's electronics. There's mechanical. And he goes, you're a smart guy. Figure it out. So that's where Geotronics came in. So I just came back from the States. I had a design center that touched printed circuit board designs that actually we used to do work for Intel using an EDA company called Cadence, which is not represented, but we also use mental graphics tools. In Jordan, where we design boards for testing silicon, testing chips in Amman. We have 10 engineers. And so Ahmad calls me and he goes, you know a little bit about this. So it's very difficult, but let's give it a shot.
We cannot hear you well here.
Sorry, is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to show you a quick video
Okay.
Hello? Okay, great. So let's start with the video, please, guys. It's a 2-minute video about what J-Tronics is and what it's supposed to do, and then I'll go into some more details.
What do you do with a large talent pool of highly educated engineers who are hungry for career opportunities? At first glance, some might answer with a resounding nothing. The world is as it is. The rules are etched in stone, and the breaks are only for a few lucky ones. The idea that you can create opportunities out of minimal resources seems impossible to most of us. But not for a small country that for decades has repeatedly proven that combining vision, ingenuity, and an unrelenting drive to capitalize on its human assets can go a long way. Today, once again, Jordan is aiming high by establishing a local electronics design industry, starting with a center of excellence that leverages its current human capital to attract and connect with players across the industry's global supply chain. Attention engineers, J-Tronics is now boarding. Prepare for a new world of opportunities. J-Tronics will develop an entire ecosystem designed to supply and enable 3 core elements: highly skilled and knowledgeable engineers, a cost-effective and incentivized operational structure, and location readiness. J-Tronics will attract, equip, and deploy industry-ready engineers and match them to specific needs of international technology partners. To be 100% confident with the capabilities of local engineers, J-Tronics will send them to their partner sites to get trained according to their criteria and qualification requirements until they are fully prepared. This will eliminate any design risks and simultaneously improve capabilities. Industry partners will also benefit from J-Tronics' specialized design services that can enhance and localize a wide range of existing products and open up new markets. So back to that question. What do you do with the large talent pool of highly educated engineers who are hungry for career opportunities? Plug in to a whole new world of opportunities. Contact J-Tronics at www.jtronics.jo. J-Tronics is an initiative funded by the King Abdul II Fund for Development and Iris Guard.
So I have a few slides just to go into more details. So as you can tell, the scope of J-Tronics is really to create a complete electronic industry. And that's really very hard to do because the electronics industry is incredibly big. It's incredibly detailed. We're talking a lot here about the semiconductors and the electronics, but then you got system level, you got packaging, it's just a huge thing. So the scope here is to build an overall industry. But we do have some successes, and we're really proud of them that we want to share with you, and they happen to be in the electronics area. We'll talk more about that. So it's a public-private partnership, and the goal is to establish the industry. Today, we are migrating J-Tronics from an initiative under King Abdullah Fund to be a center of excellence for the whole industry. And we're in talks with the stakeholders, which are the universities, the EDA companies, the software companies, the end users, Intel and the like. And the idea is to create this center where we'll be able to cultivate the environment to enhance on the successes that we had. So we're in transition today. I gotta mention that it was actually funded by Iris Guard and King Abdullah Fund. Again. So it's to create an electronic design industry, create an ecosystem, create support and services, and it's basically built on our #1 resource is human capital. Go ahead. So why electronics? Well, it's driving everything, literally. Whether it's telecom, phones, whether it is servers, military aero, manufacturing, medical, satellite and telecommunications, and now the Internet of Things. It all goes back to electronics. And what we're able to do it and the uses, as Dr. Davis suggested, is just incredible. And with this Internet of Things, it's even more reason why we should focus on that. I have some numbers. They're a little dated, But to give you an idea, the global electronics market is about 1.8 trillion. That's about 2% of the global GDP. It's 70 times or 100 times Jordan's GDP. Probably changed, it's probably more than that by now. And it's growing consistently and rapidly, which is going to be about 2.3 trillion by 2020. And these numbers are dated, so I'm sure it's, but it's a big market, it's a huge market. Telecom and consumer is the biggest section of it at 45%. IT, hardware and software is second, and these are vary and things are kind of merging, different sectors are changing. This is courtesy of Synopsys, by the way. It is dated as well. So the industry is about 1.2 trillion. At the time, the semiconductor market was approximately 235 billion. The EDA market, which is the electronic design automation, and semiconductor IP, which is the designs that are being sold, was a $5 billion market. The interesting thing about this is, no, let's go back. Thank you. If you take the design aspect of it, just the design aspect of the electronics industry, and say that's about 10% of the revenues, that's a $120 billion market. And this is only ICs, by the way. Worldwide, there's approximately 100,000 engineers that are actually designing silicon. So if we in Jordan can come up to 300-400 people in 3-4 years, 5 years, that becomes a hub. That's a significant percentage of the available engineers that touch silicon. So you don't have to have thousands to be able to make a difference in this, and it's very, very high level. And when we studied this, we looked at the whole electronics supply chain. So we looked at the design, we looked at the electronics components, we looked at the systems, we looked at and it's a huge, huge market. And the design aspect of it really is the best suited for highly educated engineers, which we do have, and the most award in terms of being higher up in the value chain. So each engineer that you get is going to have a bigger impact than a manufacturing factory worker or even a salesperson. So when we set it out, we wanted to come up to 500 engineers over the years. And again, the impact is that these are very high-paying jobs. In Silicon Valley, I don't really know what the numbers are, you guys would know better, but they're well over $100,000 for an IC designer per year. And even if we do 250 jobs, that's equivalent to $25 million worth of revenue that we're generating, or worth of equivalent value, if you will. And then the economic impact is, I'm not an economist, but maybe twice, 5 times, I don't know, that. So if you have 500 engineers, the impact to the economy, it will be a significant impact when you create secondary and third jobs. Now, this is the tough part. So we looked at this 4 years ago actually, and we're like, okay, so what do we do? We know we want to be able to design ICs, or touch the silicon of design. So what do we do? We have good engineers, excellent theoretical skills, never touched an EDA tool, a software tool. We know there's customers worldwide, Intel and the like, that would love to have this stuff done outside. So what do? We needed to create the supply, and we needed to attract the demand. And we focused on post-graduation. So the idea was to take the engineers that are already there, get them to learn the EDA tools, work on their skills, work on their actual development, make them understand the application, and be able to actually offer a service that the customer would be able to take. So it was a challenge. It's a story of the chicken and the egg, really. So that we came up with the concept of really what we got to do is you got to work with big international companies in the field. We got to work with local companies that are willing to get into this field, and then we got to work on the training and the skill sets of the engineers out of schools. So all of them go hand in hand in creating this. So basically what we did is we got the EDA tools. We were lucky enough to put them in universities. We trained the engineers on how to design the silicon. We took them and placed them at international companies to be trained. We brought them back and opened up a design center. Today, I'm very proud to say that we have over 30 engineers designing silicon in Amman. And the customers are people like Intel, Freescale, all of the semiconductor companies. And thanks to Dr. Khaldoon, who's leading that effort, which is really, so it does work. We made it work. So let me go through the rest of it quite fast. The idea was also not to recreate. We are not a university, we're not an academy, so we work with existing resources. We work with the EDA companies like Cadence and Mentor and Synopsys. With the help of the USAID, we've got grants to be able to fund this stuff. We work with the ministries, and basically we were the glue that kind of put things together. Now, you ask why would people want to come to Jordan? And in a simplistic business sense, they come for one of two reasons. They either come to increase market share, or they come to cut cost. And this is really the issue. In this case, we think it's going to be you could actually do cut costs by outsourcing and be able to lower the cost of engineering, but also there's a market that you could tap into in the future. So, quick statistics, for the same skill sets, every 5 engineers in Jordan are equivalent to about 1 engineer's salary in Silicon Valley. You lose a lot of efficiencies, time change, handshakes, so it ends up to be a 3-to-1 return, which is really, really good for engineering companies. The idea was to start local or start in Jordan and then go regional and then go global. Go ahead. So, and expand as we go on, and then eventually you will have innovation within Jordan where they could start developing their own products. Again, we modeled it after the Royal Medical Services and the Air Force. In the 70s, the late King Hussein took the top and brightest students, sent them to England and the States to study medicine. They came back and he opened the Royal Medical Services for them, and now, medicine is one of our strongest economic assets in Jordan. We do have some successes. Go ahead. Sorry. So Iris Guard is a Jordanian company. The TCI is the company I had where we had engineers designing test equipment in Jordan. Hatif is the old landline company. It's a Jordanian company. Kitab, which is interactive boards that are being used in schools. All of these are electronic Jordanian companies. So there are some good successes already. The vision is to have multiple disciplines. So you get IC, design center, which we already have. Then you get board level. Then you get industrial design with partnerships both in the US and abroad. Let's go one more. Synopsys is the one that we talked about. The agreement was signed in the ICT forum exactly 4 years ago, where the tools were donated to the universities. It took us 2 years to graduate students and 2 years to go from 0 to 30 engineers. So this takes time, but it's worth it. Right. Done. All-cell, which is the solar battery charging station being announced today, is also a part of the program. We had a couple of ideas of developing tools, IoT actually. This is a tracker for GPS tracker that was individual. Another one was to do an actual EKG that would talk to a smartphone. Again, this is IoT stuff that's being done in Jordan. Go ahead, let's skip this one. Again, there's also UI, UX, there's packaging design and all of that. And the idea is to also have representation in the United States where you could get talent, where you could get train the individuals and open up the market for local companies. I think that's it. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Zaid. Thank you very much. So next is Jumana, please.
Okay. So today I wanted to share with you, first of all, I'm honored to be on this distinguished panel, and I wanted to talk about the state of the electronics industry, what we at Synopsys are doing to contribute and enable the electronics industry, and then what are some of the hot market trends that we're seeing today. And finally, and most importantly, what MENA region can do to participate at the international level in this electronics industry. So what I'm showing here is the electronics industry global value chain, and I like to call it value chain as opposed to supply chain because it's really about each component bringing value to the complete chain. So we have the electronics industry that is powered by the semiconductor devices that are at the heart of these electronic components. These semiconductor devices, the chips, are manufactured by the foundries, and both the semiconductors and the foundries are enabled by the EDA and IP sector. And that's the sector in which Synopsys plays in. The electronics industry is today a 1.5 trillion or 1.8 trillion, different numbers, but it's a large industry. And everything that's in it is powered by this EDA. So what do I mean by that? Why is it powered by EDA? If we look back in 1980, a large chip had 10,000 gates, 20,000 gates. Today, a typical chip is 7 millimeters by 7 millimeters, has more than 4 billion transistors. So, and this is a chip that can fit at the tip of your fingertip. So it's a massive chip, and these days they're even called systems on a chip because they have a massive system that sits on that chip. Next slide. So there's no way to build this without heavy automation and without reuse of building blocks. You cannot start from scratch a 7 by 7, a 4 billion transistor chip every time from scratch. The technology is moving too fast for that, and you need to be able to automate, and you need to be able to reuse building blocks. On top of that, the chips have to work the first time. They are too expensive, manufacturing, building these, designing these chips, they have to work the first time. Go back, please. No, go back, yeah. So, where Synopsys in the EDA and IP is providing software tools that the chip designers are using. They're using them to design the chips, to verify the chips, prototype them, and then the foundries are making sure that they are manufacturable. So all of these tools play into both the chip design and the manufacturing. And then in the middle of that is the IP component. That's where we are building intellectual property of designs or building blocks that are part of these chips. These are standard interfaces like USB, HDMI, that are part of a lot of these electronics chips that allows the chip designers or chip companies to focus on their core functionality, on their differentiated functionality, and then reuse these standard interfaces from the IP vendors. So without these two elements, EDA and IP, it's basically very difficult and impossible to design these chips. It's too expensive, it's time consuming, and it's in an environment where, as you see, we're all consumers, we are hungry for products, we're constantly looking for newer, faster, cheaper, smaller products, and so we are the engine that's driving this growth in the electronics industry and the innovation that we are demanding. So some of the market trends, I think you've heard about a lot of these things today from different speakers. These electronic products, what sets them apart today is two things. One is that they've become smart and they are connected. All of these products. So if we look at some of these examples, like a wearable device, something that we can put on our body, it's continuously sensing and monitoring our vital signs and collecting this data and then sending it either to our personal phone or to the doctor's office. Likewise, we've heard about the smart homes or smart appliances that are talking to each other and talking to our phones and talking to central systems. Power is very expensive, so you'll see, for example, your heating and cooling system at home, instead of running the whole day, you might be able to have it sensing the environment and then through your phone remotely control it such that it's off during the day. Maybe before you reach home, you turn on the heater or turn on the cooling system, depends on whether you're in Dubai or Boston or what the weather is like, and then allows you to have a comfortable environment at home without spending and wasting energy during the day. So we are in the era of the Internet of Things, IoT. Now, next slide, please. So what we have, as we said, is that these things are connected. So you have the edge devices that have the sensors in them that are collecting the data. They're sending it over to the cloud through the aggregation layers. These are the servers, the routers, and then in the cloud you need storage, you need processing and applications or analytics that are gonna crunch this data and do something with it. But all of this is also evolving. The IoT is also evolving. And what we're seeing now is that these devices are requiring what we call autonomous sensors. What do I mean by autonomous? It's autonomously powered. So a lot of these devices are out there in the field where they need to power themselves. They need to harvest energy from the environment around them and turn it into electricity. So either from heat or light or vibration, all of these are sources of energy that need to be harvested and turned to power these devices. I've used just a few cool examples that I came across here. The one on the left is actually a simulation system that was designed by IBM. The device has 4 billion transistors in it, and it's capable to harvest energy from solar power and store it. But what's important about these things is that you need to be able to work with intermittent power source. So the sun may not be out all the time. This particular example is actually able to work with 1 minute of sunlight and then sustain itself for a whole month. So it needs to turn that into energy, but it needs to store it also in the device so that it can sustain itself for the lifetime. So this particular one is used to be placed in remote locations, maybe in forests or the Amazon, to be able to sense the environment and send early warning signals of a fire or disastrous environmental condition. Same thing on the right. This was designed by 2 engineers in China. It's similar to a Band-Aid that you would use when you're hurt or cut your arm, but it's a Band-Aid that you put on and can play music with it. So again, this is powered by the heat on your body and then sustaining itself. Finally, we know about implantable devices in the medical field. And again, these need to be ultra low power. They need to be reliable for the lifetime because you do not have the choice to cut up somebody's body, to take it out, change the battery, or recharge it and put it back in. So it has to be sustainable. Next slide. Okay, so that's just an overview of the industry and the hot market trends. Wanted to talk as a segue to talking about the MENA region to introduce a little bit about the Synopsys Worldwide University Program. That's a program that we started in Synopsys to provide the tools that we developed, the EDA, the electronic design automation tools, and design kit curriculums, course curriculums to universities in order to create skilled students that when they come out of the university, they have very relevant experience that is highly employable and relevant to the current economy and what the companies are looking for. We're engaged with worldwide with more than 1,800 universities that have deployed these programs. And I wanted to just show kind of a pie chart of the global presence. You can see a large part of it is Asia Pacific, but I wanted to highlight the small red sliver, which is the MENA region. It's about 3%. And I wanted to say is that there is potential for more growth. Right now, we're engaged with 15 universities in the MENA region, in UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Algeria, and Jordan. But there is definitely potential for growth. There is no shortage of universities, of talent, of great students, and putting these programs would equip them to be able to participate in this electronics industry. Next slide. This is also a build on this education model where we have in Synopsys Armenia an education department. And today, for the school year of 2014 and 2015, we have 308 students that are enrolled in this program, bachelor's, master's, and PhD students that take classes on site at Synopsys. So they do half of their education at the university, the other half with the Synopsys courses, and then they are ready when they graduate with the real skills that are relevant in the electronics and semiconductor industry. Half of the faculty that teach that are actually Synopsys staff that in their spare time they teach these classes. So this is a very successful model. In fact, that has fueled the growth of the Synopsys Armenia office, where we have more than 500 employees in Armenia now. Many, the majority of them came out of this university program. So, next slide. Wanted to give a couple of examples, actually successful examples here in the MENA region. The first one in Jordan, Princess Sumaya University. We have the Synopsys curriculum and tools and lab and workshops are fully deployed at the electrical engineering department, and students are enrolled in this curriculum. And then to show kind of the link into the industry, many of those students are working for Golden Electronics, based here in Jordan, doing services for Synopsys, analog design services, using Synopsys tools, contracting for Synopsys. And this company grew from 2 people to 30 engineers in 2 years. So, really impressive model. In Egypt, again, we're in partnership with Ain Shams University. Many of those students also came out of that curriculum, are employed in different companies in Egypt. One of them is ICpedia, that we work very closely with. They do analog digital design in cutting-edge technologies. They've even taken the lead on chip designs that we are doing at Synopsys. 38 engineers are working at that company. So, needless to say, Synopsys is looking for broader engagement. We'd love to engage even further in Jordan. I think there is no shortage of talent and great universities that we can partner with, and to basically create a bigger pool of talent. There is definitely shortage of talent, and that can come out of Jordan to feed the industry. So in summary, just a few points to leave you with. The electronics industry is definitely hot. It's growing at a very fast rate, and semiconductor is at the heart of this electronics industry. Universities need to continuously modernize their curriculums. This is a challenge. This is not a unique challenge in Jordan or the MENA region. This is a challenge across the world. Even universities in Silicon Valley have to keep up with the pace of technology to have their courses and their curriculums relevant to what is happening in the industry. MENA has a great opportunity to participate in the creation and outsourcing of electronics design worldwide and bringing top dollar income into the local economy. And then finally, one key point is that also to participate at the international level, you have to build credibility, which means high quality standards, and those are required to be seen as credible and as a partner for international companies. So we need to educate and we need to invest.
Thank you, Jumana. Very nice presentation. Dr. Ashraf is next. Tafadhal, Doctor.
Good evening. Maybe I will tackle a different subject than my 3 colleagues. I will focus here on the other side of the Internet of Things, which is the embedded software. And I believe in the embedded software, there is a very big opportunity for Jordan, because Jordan excelled very much on business software and internet-based software, and I believe embedded software will be an extension. Here we see how the electronic evolved from when Intel beginning in 70s with the packaged IC, with microprocessor, system on a chip, large data center, and finally the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things make the mix between hardware and software is a necessity, because on the system on a chip was the start, on the big data was continuation, but on the Internet of Things, really the types of software become very different and shall be integrated on the hardware. Of course, now money comes from different resources in the microelectronic industry: healthcare, infrastructure, transportation, but also the Internet of Things, where we have everything connected. And I believe with the mobile phone, it is a start, and there will be a continuation with the smart home, with the smart cities, all these smart things. I put this diagram for the Internet of Things framework. We have things, we have gateway, we have network and the cloud. These three different things, the software play major role on it. And also the customer of this Internet of Things, which will be most likely the mobile phone, we will have the apps on it. On my presentation, I will focus on things and gateway, where we need on things tiny and real-time operating system running on tiny processor. On gateway, we need a complex operating system to run security and the aggregation, because a lot of aggregation can be done on the gateway level. Of course, it can be done also on network and cloud. I will focus on the things and gateway, and I will show how Jordan has a very big opportunity on this. This is a vision how we can make money of the Internet of Things, different business model. Of course, we have the big things, platform as a service, but also we have a very small things, which country like Jordan and Egypt can participate a lot. A lot of integration and support service for integrated Linux, adding new devices, adding new drivers, adding shell of securities, adding network protocols. Also, a lot of small service on even the small device, how I can get a connectivity fees from my device, how I can print everywhere, how I can get use of the printer to make money. All these things can be done on both the device level and the gateway level. Now I will go very abstract. This is exactly the same fancy diagram which I put on the second slide. We have things which need very small operating system. Inventor has one, Nucleus, is a real-time operating system. You can find it in your refrigerator. You can find it in your mobile. Besides that, on the edge node and hubs and broker, now Linux is widely used. For that, we need people know Linux and know real-time operating system. And finally, we have the big data, where we can find it on the cloud. and big devices. I will not speak about this here. Of course, it is a very, very big business, but a lot of big players here also. To be more specific, I will use some specific protocols and terms. Two models for running Internet of Things. Either we have everything on the cloud server, and the second model between the devices and the edge node, a lot of things to be done. To do this, we have a lot of new protocols. In this protocol, a lot of work needs to be done. All companies have problem to equip their operating system by all these protocols. For that, this is a very big opportunity for a country like Jordan. Also, on all network level, on the application layer, new protocol has been emerged to develop software running on things. Also, a lot of security protocol need to be modified, even on the low level. On the network device, the power is not important, but on the other hand, on the tele devices, the power is very, very important. For that, a lot of protocols which used before on local area network and ID need to be modified for power, and for that, a lot of protocols has been emerged. Also, a lot of work to be done here. This is a set of important protocol. Of course, these are in detail, but why I put all this detail? To go to my two proposals. I would like to propose for Jordan, and now after really hearing the G-Tronic presentation, I believe many of stakeholders, I found that they are here. For that, these two proposals, we use similar proposal to expand Mentor Egypt. Mentor Egypt is 320 engineers doing IB, electronic design automation, and hardware and software design. I believe my first proposal is to make a professional master on embedded system. This professional master on embedded system non-thesis program may be on one top Jordanian university, maybe more than one. It depends how the Jordan's university cooperate, because in Egypt, university don't cooperate, maybe on Jordan it's different. For that, maybe one or two universities, the Ministry of ICT, and this program shall have an advisory board containing multinational companies and Jordanian companies, and to find some funding bodies. Why funding? I believe this program shall be made to be sustainable. But on the other hand, to attract good students, you need to give scholarships. For that, I believe the funding body doesn't need to fund the program itself, but fund the student to go to the program. And with the advisory board, you can know from the multinational company what type of engineer they need. The idea is to create a pool of strong and talented embedded system. And from really the G-Tronic presentation, I found here my third bullet is very important. We need to have a strong module on the business and management module on this master to allow people to able to do a startup. This is my first proposal. The second proposal is to establish an embedded software competence center. This embedded software competence center will be responsible to increase the high caliber embedded software engineers based in Jordan. Also, to provide necessary infrastructure and technical support. Because to develop software, you need infrastructure. For that, in such embedded software competence center, you have this infrastructure. The people on the master of embedded system come here to use the infrastructure, and after that use this infrastructure to build a technology startup, to do startup coming from this program. The second mission of such embedded software competence center is to build a cluster from the local industry. I saw in different presentations there is a number of companies maybe working together with the multinational, with the big name, it help a lot to increase the competitiveness of Jordan in the embedded software global market. Also, the major task for this embedded software competence center is to increase the manpower by stimulating new Jordan technology startup in this field. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ashraf. And for all our speakers, thank you very much. I don't think I need to send more. Exciting times for us, for all of us here. Just some ways to run the program. I'll ask a couple of questions to our panelists, then we'll open it up. And we'll keep it an open session. We're running a little bit late, so I'll cut my questions short so you have the opportunity to ask questions. But I'll ask one question to all our speakers, and I would like to actually hear from all of them. I mean, as a college professor myself, it's really hard to keep up with how technology changes, universities often need to be very proactive about updating their curriculum. So I'll ask the question, what do you suggest? I'll give a specific example. They're all semiconductor folks here. This whole FinFET structure of the master device. I didn't learn it in school, okay? I have to go back and really learn it so I could teach it to my students. What are your thoughts? What are your specific suggestions? You made the comment, hopefully universities in Jordan cooperate, in Egypt they don't cooperate. I mean, the universities are sometimes difficult to make change, but are there any specifics that academics can do to help keep up with the change? And I'll start in reverse order. I'll start with Dr. Ashraf first, then Ms. Jumana, Zaid, and then Dr. Davis. So Dr. Ashraf, I know you just sat down, but please.
Encouraging the internship program is very, very important. To send students on the last 2 years on their undergraduate, also to send the postgraduate, mainly the assistant in the university, to the industry to do the internship, also to do a common master and PhD program between the university and the industry. In this case, the potential staff in the university who will have his PhD in common with the industry will return back with the current technology.
Yeah, I think I mentioned some of the examples of, the university program and the cooperation, doing the internships, joint research projects that can be done between the industry and the universities. This is also another way to tap into the cutting edge technology. But I think today is different from 20 years ago. 20 years ago, knowledge was limited to textbooks. That's where you're going to get the knowledge to be able to teach at the university. Today, with the internet and the information available so readily at the fingertips, basically, that I think universities can tap into that and leverage the knowledge that's available there.
Thank you. I would like to quote a good friend of ours, Dr. Isa Batarse, who used to be the head of PSUT. He goes, it's easier to move a cemetery than to move a university. So, sorry. But I agree with Jumana 100%. Times are different. I mean, information is available. It's all, even academia now is being done for free online with the top universities. But I truly believe that the trick is in focus. it's you gotta pick a field that you wanna be good at and just focus on it, laser focus, because electronics is a huge field. I mean, you mentioned MOSFETs, or you gotta pick one thing and just really focus on it. And the other thing is you have to make sure that you have the end user in mind. It's really interesting that, when I was in the semiconductor industry, when you design silicon, you don't look at just who your customer is, whether it's going to be a system level person or a telecom. You think about the user of that device. And you guys, the EDA guys, are even one step lower than that. So it's very easy to go on tangents if you don't really know what the final user really needs. So I think it's focus, really, and being able to have the user in mind. Thanks.
Yeah, I think sometimes it comes down to a trade-off between being very specific in terms of where you focus on education and being very, very broad for, I'm skilled for many things, but not just, in some cases, specialized. And maybe it's easy to give 2 or 3 examples here. If I go into and look at, and these probably aren't as higher level jobs as you're talking about here, but if I go into China, you've got many, many manufacturing jobs, but then you go into the tech colleges, they last for 2 years, and there's about 35 million students that go in these. And you go in there and you watch them, and they have some pretty high technical areas. They're managing the equipment for the food industry, the beverage industry, the electronics creation industry, modeling, agriculture, etc. You'll see these. And it won't be quite the create everything, but it'll be the manage and the steps that will get there. And these are some of the decent paying jobs. They're not the highest paying, but they're decent. And you ask the people that run some of these colleges, 12,000 people in some of them, what is your, and they all come from the industry. All of the industry sponsors the equipment, they sponsor this, and the students come out and they're ready to be worked. What's your employment rate of the people coming out of this 35 million a year, and you ask that to a 12,000 person college? They tell you 99%, but they're specialized. And so that's one area. It's not as high a level as you're talking about here. So you have to look at that area, because that employs a lot of people if you've got those industries there. We do it with people like Thunderbird in our factories in Arizona and New Mexico. They come out there and they're equipped to be lab technicians, they run the equipment, etc. And these are probably $80,000, $90,000 paying jobs. So they're decent, but they're not quite creative. Then you go into the creative side, and that's where I think industry and universities have to work very well as well. And I've actually been to Armenia, I've been to Rich Goldman, I've seen Synopsys, I've been into the universities, and I've seen the stuff hanging on the walls. And I look and I go, that looks like a Synopsys class there. I've seen it, and so I know what you said. That looks like a Synopsys class there. And out of it, you get people there that are ready for that. And I'd say a decent percent of your classes in the technical college I went to were put in place by Synopsys. Well, that means you're going to keep them up to date, because you want the people ready next year. It's not going to be, I'm teaching you the same old subject in university I've taught you for the last 15 years and I'll teach you it until I retire. You have to do this tomorrow, and it's next year and next year. And I've seen that happen. And if you look at places like Cambridge and the way they work with Rush and Novartis and the others, in the pharma industry, they tend to do that. My alma mater, Imperial College, I know there's people in Intel working with them, and they're putting in the latest mechanical areas and different other areas on control. And in Imperial College, they've actually formed a couple of new semi-faculties to focus on some of the areas I know industry cares about. And so it means industry has to invest a bit. It means colleges have to be very, very open to that flexibility and what that means, and that's not easy. And you have to look around for that opportunistically. You won't always get the group you want when you want it exactly the way you want it, but you have to sometimes take what's there, get going and build up a capacity and keep running. And I've seen enough of these to realize that you see them. I have one more example. In the Philippines, I saw they made all the movie making industry in Hong Kong, and they did. And I go to the Philippines and I see this big Yogi Bear, 20-meter Yogi Bear, and I said, what's that? They're like, it's the Hanna-Barbera factory. Oh, what do you do there? Well, we shade in the every frame, and we do it. Where do you render it? Where do you do this? Oh, we send it to Hong Kong. I thought, well, okay, but you could actually do some of that locally, and do it for get going and create jobs. They immediately opened up in the technical universities, they're bachelor's and technical degrees in animation to show people how you could do it, and they put the equipment in some of them. So it's dependent on what you've got in your country and the capabilities, but by building that, it then attracts more. And I think that might be the engine that might be useful here, and you've got some great examples on the stage.
So, just a couple of comments here. Okay, so yeah, I think I gathered more from the Synopsys successful model in Armenia. It looks like, when you mentioned, 50% of the staff are actually, of the university staff are Synopsys employees. Just I get it, the more engaged the faculty is with industry, I think they're more up to date. So hopefully this is something we can implement here in Jordan. So as a matter of fact, I did not acknowledge, all three companies represented, Intel, Mentor Graphics, and Synopsys have generously contributed after the multiple nagging of our very active professors at PSUT, so Galileo, we actually have received 10 boards of Galileo last month. We've had a lot more coming, great, make sure you spread the wealth, no problem. And with Synopsys, we received a 20K grant to build an IC design lab, and we've had their tools for 4 years now for free. Mentor, they've been very generous with the licenses, and we've implemented, we have curriculums, and we are focused on custom design. Okay, so another question I have, actually, my colleagues here probably also agree, in Jordan, we are a third world country, but one thing that's going well for us is the government actually liberalized the communication market. So there's like stiff competition from a lot of communication companies, and we consumers, companies benefit because we have fairly affordable broadband internet. Okay, now do you think this is something we can leverage, and if to get customers, vendors to really connect to the outside world with multinational companies? If so, what do you suggest? Are there any specifics on how we engage? So I'll start with John and work my way back to Dr. Ashraf.
So I'll put on a different hat for this one because I'm actually an ITU broadband commissioner, one of about the 20 people in the industry that sit on there. They come from all over the world, some from this region. And really my job is connect people and get more people engaged in there. And I see in the region that happens, but if you said how many people in Jordan are actually on the internet using it regularly, fluidly, I think the number would be less than a half. It'd be a lot less than a half. Yeah, so 47%. So you've got a big upside potential there and in it. And so the kind of programs I'd encourage the government on is you've got to look at ways of helping people, because the business model pushes down, the PCs get cheaper, the tablets get cheaper, the smartphones get down to $50 and etc. And it isn't, I've got a voice phone, I've got to do it on a smartphone, or I've got to do it on a tablet. So you need that internet because it's data. Then it gets prepaid, I can do $1 worth and get a gig and etc. Well, that's perfect for a university student that lives on the land all day long and needs to do things in the evening and the weekends. They don't need to pay $30 that they don't have. They can pay the $1 and prepay like you do on the voice. And so that piece comes in as well. And you bring a lot more people in with that capability, and many of us have worked on those. As saying, you've worked on those, Kareem, you have, on bringing the telecoms in with low-cost devices. Then in somewhere like Jordan and the region, I'd encourage as well, there's a tremendous amount of taxation on the IT industry in different areas, and particularly the service industry, the telecoms. And a lot of countries put that back in the form of universal service fund, because you can't reach the bottom 4 billion, 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion, when 2.5 billion people in the world get $2 a day, they can't afford a device and a service. So if you want to bring them into the equation, and some of them go to college, that's what universal service was meant to be, that doesn't get spent by many, many governments. I run conferences on this every single year, and you see 30 billion collected and 11 billion spent. You connect almost everyone that needs it. If that actually went back in the industry it was taken out of, and in many cases it's the telecom industry. So that piece of it I encourage like crazy, because a business model can't reach someone that lives on $2 a day. But a business model pushed down, first, second, third, fourth billion, a government and a shared subsidy model pushing up can connect the whole of a country, and then you have a much bigger pool of people that are interested, and the engine gets much stronger. So I'd encourage that. I don't think there's anywhere near enough of that in the region, and it's where my passion is. It's the IT Broadband Commission hat. It's kind of the Intel hat as well, but it's really the IT one is what I'm driving here.
I'm going to take a slightly different angle, same kind of answer. Absolutely, I think it's a comparative country advantage to have such good infrastructure. And by the way, the broadband is one, but I think Jordan offers a lot in terms of access, in terms of security to start with. So that definitely is a comparative advantage that we can share with our international partners. Talking about internet, in 2003 I set up a design center, as I mentioned earlier, at the iPark. And at that time, we were running Allegro, which is a PCB, high performance PCB design tool made by Cadence. And the way we were doing it is we were actually serving the licenses for the tool from our office in Santa Clara. And this is 2003, which is enabled us to actually, and what would happen is that managers in Santa Clara would come in the morning and see what the guys did in Jordan without even talking to them. And you know what, if somebody we were worried about somebody or somebody left us, you just change his password and he can't log into your server anymore. And this is 2003. So it's, I think it's really, it's an advantage for us as Jordan, and we need to, talk about that. But it ends up to be the engagement of the industry with the design company here. I think we have the right infrastructure. It's just about it's connecting beyond the infrastructure to being able to do a design that is usable for that particular customer. And I think that's really where that is a bigger challenge, in my opinion. We have what it needs. It's like we have the recipe of when you go to the store and you pick up all your groceries. The question is, can you cook the meal? And really, the trick is in the values and actually being able to cook the meal. So.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point, Khaldoon, and I talked a little bit about building credibility and being able to play at the international level and participate in the electronics industry. And one of the things is to come across as credible and be a partner to these international companies, to be either an outsource or a design house that can provide. You need to be able to stand by your commitments. You have to be able to say, I'm going to be delivering by this date, or by tomorrow, or by the end of this week. And it is not going to come across as credible if you say, well, the internet was down, or the internet was too slow yesterday and I couldn't access the design, I couldn't do the layout. So having the luxury of a stable internet, fast internet in the country definitely plays as a key differentiator to be able to give companies in Jordan that credibility to play at the international level. So very important point.
It is very important on two folds. The first one, the multinational need, as Jumana said, robust and stable internet. But on the other hand, on society like us, where the talent can be away, and the real estate is very expensive in countries like ours compared with the salary. For that, it will help both startup freelancers and work from home to work for multinational without spending a lot of money using cheap and good infrastructure.
Thank you all. I think, all of us, like high-speed internet, not just for Facebook and YouTube, but actually some companies rely on it to stay in business. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open it up for questions. I have a couple of more questions that I'm just going to table for now, but please, if you have questions, go ahead. So Dr. Wissam first, and the gentleman, please.
Okay, so I'm just going to speak up. Okay, I guess my question is,
What Jordan can do as government, as university, or as donor like us, or USAID, or trying to help Jordan, what can we do to get you to hire 300 people in Jordan or 500 people like you did in Armenia and Egypt? What do I need to do to get you either start your own design center or support the design center and give them business? What do you look, how can I attract you to do that? And as that goes for, maybe
From my side, I believe the answer is to prepare 300 engineers able to work on this technology. The opportunity is there. The cost is not the factor. Companies going out for talent, and if the talent are there and the engineers are ready, I believe everyone will come.
So we have a slightly different business model in, if you look at Intel, the question I always get asked is, what about putting a factory here? Well, the wafer factories are in 4 countries.
No,
So,
I'm talking about really,
so the R&D,
I'm not talking about the
So there's a few ways of doing this. One of which is we look at capabilities and say, look, this capability exists here for this particular area, this wireless area, this software area, this camera area, and look at some capabilities there and build up on it. Like in Central Eastern Europe, a lot of our camera work gets done, and we're taking it into 3D camera work and very high resolution cameras with PCs that would do, and tablets that would do much more. So you look at an area and say, look, it's 25 engineers there, that's good, and we can actually get a competence center in a certain area. And that'll end up being in maybe 30 or 40 countries. So you get a lot more there. The biggest jobs impacts that I think we can do as an industry and the multinationals is the enabling of the locals. So as an example, when the PCs were going through lots of hand assembly in the country, we had 200,000 channel members that still exist in countries, but since you don't build as many more, the laptop and the tablet made that, took a lot of that to the Far East. They've become systems integrators, and they do work with defense and big industry in that area. And so the biggest area I think can work on is to raise the level of the software, the coding, the integration, the tools, compilers, and all of that, so a country can be much, much more competitive. You can take a CPU with 8 cores on it, you have to thread the application through 8 pieces of the CPU, and that's compilers, and that's libraries, and that's tools, and training of that, so universities get it, small startup companies get it, and they do it in a way that's powerful, so they can say, I'm doing this today in HTML5, I can run it on an Android platform, an iOS platform, a Windows platform, and my work gets spread across many, many devices. So that's normally where the biggest employment, maybe the word is lever I'm looking for here, because there's a small number of, where you can hire 80, 100 people, and there's a lot of where you can enable thousands of software engineers in different areas by getting them the tools, getting them the libraries, getting them the capabilities, showing them where the areas are, and then making sure you have workshops and provide the tools, the capabilities, the design boards, all of those. That's where I think the much bigger number of zeros is on the employment side, because it's many, many tens of thousands. It isn't just 30 and 50 and 80 and that level. So that's our business model. Some of the other companies here may be more, I've got this center and we put it there. And we do it in some countries, but we don't have them in all countries on the planet. So you get them in maybe 40, and we're very careful on those. And we've got the Intel capital to work with them as well. So you look at it, where's the capability? If it makes sense, we can look at that and maybe pick up a capability. We've done a number of acquisitions. We've done a lot of second round venture capital funding, which means by definition, we work with that company to make them bigger. And that does happen in this region. There's quite a few examples I could give you.
Okay, can you give us specific examples?
Yeah, so in fact, let me get the team to help out a little bit here on some of the examples in there. From Intel Capital. Can you help us a little bit? Kareem in Egypt? Yeah.
Well, actually, we had 2 in Jordan. One is Shiran, which is
Okay.
And the other one is Shufiki. It's an also Jordanian-based company that Intel Capital invested in.
And they came around because they had a capability that we saw that was useful and we thought it was a good business plan, so we'll help them become bigger and stronger. Yeah.
For Arabic companies.
Right.
And that was our interest.
Yeah. And so that's through the Intel Capital side.
Another example was 2011 when we acquired an Egyptian company, Systisoft.
Mhm.
We were doing the LTE, the modem design for the LTE chip. And now they've moved into our engineering group. As part of the engineering.
So Intel has an R&D center in Egypt.
We acquired them, and then all the engineering were now co-located in Munich and Bangalore. So this whole team now went to Munich to work from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you don't start with 300. You've got to, yeah. So, I mean, you have to start small. And we talked about education, so building that skilled workforce that has the technical capabilities that are of interest to these companies. And you start by demonstrating your capability and demonstrating credibility. So starting with a small project, showing that you're able to deliver on commitments, deliver on the quality standards that are expected of these companies, and then you start growing that and building upon it. One of the challenges, I mean, one challenge is, of course, the skill set, the technical skill set, but there's also other challenges like project management, like putting schedules, communication, how to communicate with the external companies. A lot of times the crispness in the communication may not be something that's an experience that the local people have. So building on all of these things is going to be necessary, and starting small and demonstrating and then building upon that and gaining the trust of the external companies.
Okay. تفضل. Name and affiliation, please.
Thank you so much for this very smart forum. I think Jordan deserves it, and thank you so much for your participation as well in it. My name is Zihab Haddadin. I work with GE Healthcare in Saudi. I'm Jordanian, so I have a vested interest in seeing my country actually developing into a developed country in terms of electronics and all these industries. Now, the flip side of what Dr. Was mentioning today about how you can create jobs in here. I was wondering if something like some company like GE, for instance, just as an example, if they want to start something in here, based on your experience, based on your business model, what you have experienced in Jordan, what do you think the main obstacles have been for you to start in Jordan? And what would you think the better way of solving these obstacles, and making sure that it's attractive for foreign investments to actually start businesses in here, to respond to the requirements of customers in here and in the MENA region. So what would you briefly think about the main obstacles, or one or two obstacles, and how we should, Jordan as a government, as a private, public sector should look at it and resolve it?
I really think the main obstacle is just the skilled labor force. Jordan is small, but it's really, if you're looking for the right, if you have the right company in mind, where you don't need a lot of resources like water or energy, I think, like Zaid was saying in his presentation, Jetronics, we got talent, but we still don't have the appropriate, specialized, focused skills to do. So it's just, there's no simple answer for it. That really is my 2 cents on it. I've been here 4 years, but it's really just really skilled labor force. So I'll let the mic travel on its own.
A great question, by the way. I think there's different challenges at different levels. There's challenges at the regional level. I mean, but it's very obvious what's going on around us. And it's at this time, I'm finding it difficult to convince my friends in the States to come and even visit, quite frankly, just because of what's going on. So there are obstacles beyond, our control, right, at the macro level. The flip side of that, by the way, is that we are safe, we're secure, we are intact as a country, so I mean, there's a different side to it. But then there's challenges on your particular business and what you're trying to do. And the question I would ask is, why is it that you want to come to Jordan? Is it because you want to expand the market? Or is it because you want the talent? Or is it because you want lower cost labor, manufacturing, or design? You know, and each one of those will have its own set of challenges. From the electronics perspective, electronics industry perspective, the biggest challenge we faced with electronics in specific is actually passing the physical products through customs and through. I'll give you examples. I mean, we had a conference about 2 years ago, and we had the small Arduino boards. We had a shipment coming in, and there's a ton of guys that are using them, and we were doing presentations with Arduino. They got stuck in some security somewhere, and good luck. So these are kind of things that are very problematic. On the flip side, all software sales that happen over the internet, there's no boundaries, there's no customs, there's no income tax, there's no sales tax. So it depends on what you do. It's very hard to generalize the answer. But yeah, I mean, there are obstacles. Things here take longer time to do, and if you have to go through a procedure of some sort, even though there's the GIB, Jordan Investment Board, there are a lot of facilities to help investors come in. It's still cumbersome, still takes time. For example, we don't have, it's very hard to shut down a company in Jordan. Sorry. It's very hard to shut down a company. In the States, you file bankruptcy or you shut down, and you do it. So there are a lot of things like that. But it really is, I think, is relevant to what is it that you want to do and why you want to come here.
Yeah, I agree with you, Zaid. And also looking at some of the international companies, the US, Europe, they're driven by the bottom line, basically. I mean, they are exploring these markets for lower costs, but it has to make sense, the lower cost and the value proposition. So if the lower cost is offset by lower efficiency, higher risk, and things like that, then the value proposition is not there anymore. So the risk has to be low in terms of either the stability of the country, the quality of the deliverables of these external resources, and then just to touch on some of the challenges that we're seeing. It depends on the model that we implement. So in some cases, your remote teams are working independently on a turnkey design. So completely you outsource the design from start to end, and they are working on it independently and then delivering at the end. This is less challenging. Sometimes you are co-developing across sites, across time zones, where there is very limited overlap of time, and teams are literally handing off data and the designs between the different sites. And that is definitely much more challenging. You need very strong, solid processes for the communication and for the handoff of the data and things like that to make it happen. So that would not be something that I would start with as a model with a new center and things like that.
I think I actually answered part of this earlier with the enabling, so I'm not the expert on that area. But
I don't know Jordan very well, but on the other hand, I know Egypt. The problem there is the ability to scale up. Big companies need big subsidy, and in our country, in Egypt, and I believe in Jordan, we have the same problem. Even starting from the office space, very minimum business park like this in the area, number of engineering students are limited, number of people speaking different language are very limited. For that, the ability to scale up is a very big problem. For that, many companies will focus to work with small companies as outsourcing office instead of building a big branch due to this problem of scalability.
So
So I think, yes.
Nader Haddad, I also work with Synopsys, came with Jumana. A question back to maybe Wissam and maybe some of the people who are in Jordan. What is the government in Jordan doing to attract, not just in the electronic industry, but really specific? Maybe Wissam, you could highlight what are some of the things that they're doing to attract investors, and what do you think one or two things that really worked to bring? So if we can learn from that model, maybe we can also learn backward from you on your experiences, because you posed that question earlier and I wanted to flip it.
So you're putting me in the spot. You know, especially in the IT sector, we always say, you know, what we want from the government is to stay out of the way. Really, just stay out of the way, and don't, you know, it's working, just don't mess with it. And there was a few good examples where we have the government, especially the Ministry of ICT. They can support, for example, if you're an IT company, they will pay half for the first year. If you hire a fresh graduate in IT, they will pay half their salary for the first year, up to a certain point, of course. And they still do. So that I think that's a really good program. It gives it reduces the risk on the company. So instead of hiring, you know, 2, they can hire 4, and for the first year, see who are the 2 that they want to keep and the one they don't want to keep. So. And it incentivizes the private sector to really hire people. So this program, I think, was a good program in the ICT sector. I think we have been struggling with attracting FDI and attracting investment. As Zaid mentioned, the Jordan Investment Board that did not have a lot of success in doing that. And I think because again, it goes back to focus, really. We were just going, you know, taking a delegation to the United States and just meeting with everybody with no specific focus, and no homework done. So you know, if I go to Intel, I have to go to Intel with a clear value proposition and a cost structure. And why should Intel come and set up, or Synopsys, or Mentor or anybody, GE Health, why should you come? And here are the opportunities in Jordan. We did not do that homework before we go try. Now there is a new commission called the Jordan Investment Commission now, which a new investment law that should be a little bit better and more focused on quality investment that can create jobs and etc. So you know, the government is trying, but there is a lot of, as you appreciate, there is a lot of challenges, and you know, I don't envy them at this point of time where. You know, security is an issue, energy pricing is an issue, fiscal issues. There's a lot of issues the government has to deal with. But I think at the top of it is employment, and that's where we really need to focus on how do we bring FDI to, you know, do high level and high value added job creation and employment. And that's why we hope with your help we can, you know, do some of that at least.
I want to give you a couple of comments, one on Egypt and one on Jordan, actually, just my own experience, what I've seen. I've spent about the last 7 days in Egypt, actually. There was a Egypt ICT forum there, and their ICT forum, it was heavily focused on Egypt. It was also focused on a parallel forum. I spent a lot of time with the people, round tables, and the dinner where they was all captive on the boat, and that with about 15 countries from Africa. And the image there was, you know, basically a gateway into Africa. And there was a lot of African countries there. Regulator levels, the minister from Ethiopia for IT was there. So these were not junior people. The next thing that happened was the American Chamber of Commerce was there. So I was part of that for 2 days. I've never been part of that before, and I learned a lot from it. But every single minister came out, the Minister of Finance, Minister of Economy, agriculture, energy, investment, people showing the Suez. And so, as well as the American Chamber of Commerce, suddenly we found about 15 other groups joining, where all the ministers went through their areas and talked to the smart village. So I listened to about I'm guessing, all of the cabinet, including the president for an hour and a half, and the Prime Minister for a session, explaining why that country was different and it was more stable now, and the democratic. I left Egypt with a very much, wow, I need to go back and tell this story inside the factory better. And I listened to it. Now, I was very lucky about, it was in March or April, His Majesty King Abdullah came to Silicon Valley. He'd actually been in, I think he'd been in Washington, came to Silicon Valley, and there was a CEO roundtable, and somehow our CEO was in a different part of the world, and I got to go to that. So I sat there and I actually brought some subjects up. But His Majesty did a brilliant job of showing people where the investment was, why this was a stable country in the region, why it made sense, what about the internet, the big trunk connections, why there was hardened buildings, why you could put internet data centers in there and hold people's data and feel pretty comfortable. That was a part of it, and I was watching him making that, describing that very fluidly, and sitting right there was Eric Schmidt from Google that builds a lot of data centers, along with a lot of platforms from us and many other people, and there was 2 or 3 others in there that are kind of data center driven, and I could see they was interacting and asking the questions, and how safe is this data center? Tell me about it again. What's your backup power? How hardened is it? And is it really that hard? And there was all sorts of that area. You've got, I don't know how many countries are at this forum, but there are many, I think. You saw His and Her Majesty here today, and there was a lot of the government leaders. That sort of image helps a little bit as well. And it isn't the grassroots, you know, university by university, job by job, but it does send an image and a message to people that, hey, we're open for business and we're good for business, and please start looking at our country. And from the top of it, I really care. And I was watching that interaction on that data center with Eric Schmidt, you know, the CEO of Google, and this is interesting. And I went back and shared that story as well with a number of people in our executive staff.
Yeah, I agree, definitely, John. I mean, His Majesty is our #1 salesperson, not just for IT, but for the whole country, in terms of stability and in terms of why come to Jordan. But the interesting point is, I think all of the, we have, by the way, very good incentive laws, investment incentives to come in. You know, in terms of, we have the free trade agreement with the United States, the qualified industrial zones. Anything you do in IT that you export.
There's a development zone.
There's a development zone here, so you don't pay taxes. I mean, it's there. Everything you want is there. It's really, really good. And for manufacturing as well, by the way.
Yeah.
But so does everybody else. It's a reality. And it's not about, you know, trying to attract somebody to come to Jordan instead of going to Egypt. That's really not the game anymore. It's about convincing Eric Schmidt to come to Jordan instead of having his data warehousing in Arkansas.
Your data's safe here.
Yeah, your data's, yeah, you know, but really we're competing. I think there's a city in the States that changed their name to Google for one day when Google was looking for where to put their next data center. I mean, you know, so we're not competing just with other countries, developing countries. We're competing with what's in the States. And I think it goes back to Dr. Wissam's point. It's about focus. So we go to Eric Schmidt, tell him, this is what we want to, this is what we can offer you because of 1, 2, 3, 4 is a lot more likely. It's a more clear value proposition to come in than really what, you know, what the government can do or what the country can offer. This is
I think I would like to finish on time. So we've got 5 more minutes, so if it's a quick one. Dr. Ashraf, I know he has a plane to catch at 7, so we don't want to delay things. But if there's no more questions, I would like to thank all our speakers. It's been delightful having you. People who flew over, definitely welcome to Jordan, and I hope next time you stay for longer and enjoy the country and others. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming.